Hello, everybody. Welcome to a bonus episode of Clash of the Correspondents. My name's James, and for those of you watching on YouTube at the moment, you see there's only two of us. Our dear friend Neil Grover, our Bournemouth correspondent, is MIA, missing in action. He's just messaged me and said the wife's got me under the thumb doing stuff. So we'll get Neil on in a little bit. But first, obviously, I want to introduce you to our Watford correspondent, Stephen Toumi at Sixth Goal. How are you, Stephen?
Hey, good morning, James. I'm doing well. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks, mate. So this is going to be a little bit different to normal Clash of the Correspondents. We're not going to get the banter sort of as such. We'll merge the two conversations together. In the first instance, Stephen, this is our first time speaking to you since obviously the unfortunate relegation. How are you feeling about the club at the moment?
There's been a lot of change. A lot of the old guard seemingly falling by the wayside, getting a lot of kids in there. But I feel we have a good balance. We got a great manager coming in from Israel in Ivik, and he seems to have his shit together here. Just looking over his record, I think he was a great selection. Some of the moves may be a little questionable. Who left? We're still missing a legitimate forward, but I feel good about the upcoming season. I don't think we'll have many issues, and I do think we'll get back to the Premier League next year.
Good. That's good to hear. Is that the expectation of the club? Because we know the Pozzos haven't been shy in sort of backing the club at the right time if they've got a manager in that they trust and stuff. Is that the feeling amongst the fan base at the moment?
I mean, we thought we trusted Javi Garcia. I thought the Pozzos trusted him. I mean, he goes from hero to GOAT to inside of 12 months. Who knows what's going to happen to this guy? I mean, same thing may happen. I mean, he's there to do a job to get us, hopefully out of the championship and back up into the Premier League where the money is. But you start looking down the list of moves that, they make, and you see some big names that have left the club that have, been cornerstones in that club for many, since they were promoted back in, 2015? Yeah. So, yeah, we'll see. I think the expectation, though, is to return. I don't think there's anything less will satisfy the management, the players, or the supporters.
Yeah, ironically, you and Bournemouth, part of the reason for doing this with yourself and Neil now is you play each other in a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. You did actually come up together and obviously went down together as well. So that's why it was interesting to get your thoughts on where you've been and where you come up. Because with respect, obviously, when you came up in 2015, the majority would have just had both of you clubs as bankers to go straight back down, basically. And then obviously we had the Igalo and Dini season. You performed very well. Why do you think that there's so little patience with the managers shown? And I know, for example, you weren't, when Nigel Pearson was sacked, the majority of us from the outside were like, you can't sack him at this stage. But you weren't bothered at all, were you, really?
I was never a Pearson fan. Yes, he came in. Yes, he had, I guess, some specific goals to hit. He hit some of those goals, but he just didn't feel like a fit for Watford. I don't know if it was the way he played the game, his approach. I know he's been successful in the past, but he just didn't fit, I feel, what Watford was about when it came to football. So, I was ecstatic when they finally got rid of him. What do we have, 2 games in the season or something like that, 2-3 games, and they ship him out and, we get the interim for the remainder of the season. So I had no problem with it because I felt he was not going to be there, come the new season, which, again, was just fine. Pozzos run it as a business. I mean, you can't argue. I mean, they make money. They do well. Our scouting program, especially in South America, is huge. I mean, they come up with some great names. And, I mean, how much we've made on, I don't want to say we've made on Decore and Richarlison, but, I mean, they buy these guys cheap and ended up selling them for millions and, just reinvest that money back into the team, back into the scouting network. And, it's great to see Decore and Richarlison playing for Everton now. I mean, I got my Toffee shirt and, I'm on the bandwagon for the season. What can I say?
I thought you hated Richarlison.
I've come full circle on him now. I'm really excited. I think he's matured. I think he's grown. And, I think he's going to be a hell of a footballer, but that can be said about many guys coming out of Brazil. So it's going to be great to watch him this year, especially with the group he has in midfield and Ancelotti and Calvert-Lewin. Now just get rid of Pickford, and I think we're okay.
Interesting. And obviously
But
Doucouré's gone to Everton now as well. And he done very well for you in multiple different midfield positions. I think it's acceptable that he wasn't going to play in the Championship and stuff. But how do you see him getting on longer term at Everton? Do you think he's good enough to play for a team that will push for the top six and stuff?
I mean, he's, I picture him like Richarlison. I mean, it's going to take him, I think, a couple more years to grow and learn the game and play with, some of these other guys who've been around, like Rodriguez and Allen. I think he fits in that team well. I mean, I'd like to see him, up his goal tally. Obviously, I think every midfielder wants that, but maybe that's not his game for Everton. Which if he comes away at the season and has 4 or 5 goals and 4 or 5 assists, I think you call that a very successful season. But he's a strong midfielder. I mean, him and Capoue in the middle for Watford for those couple of years. I mean, they were MVPs back to back for 2 years, and you can't ask the guy to do any more. I think he's a great footballer.
Interestingly, on Capoue, he'd said that he wanted to leave. Looks like he's had a change of heart now.
Yep.
And he's now going to stay. That's really good news, isn't it?
Oh, that's huge. We keep him. We keep Sarr. I think right there we've got 2 solid midfielders who are going to really help the team, get where we want to be next season.
Do you expect Ismaila Sarr to stay? Because obviously the EFL window closes on, I think it's Friday.
Yeah, I don't see him going anywhere now. They tried. I mean, who wasn't trying to get PSG at one time was linked. We know United kept chasing here, and it looks like he's going to be more than content to stay this season. And everybody says he's going to have a great year. He's playing up top, so we'll see what he can do. Yeah, we need someone to score goals. Shit.
Well, if he stays, he's going to be a mass provider. And to be fair, Andre Gray has performed very well at that level in the past. He has, mate.
120 goal season is what everybody's living off of, I think. And that's from like 20, when was it? 2014, 2013. It's been a while, but he hasn't played. I don't think he's played at that level, in many, many years. He was a good super sub for, I don't remember which manager it was, but, he had the year in the Premier League, he netted 8 goals, and I think 7 of them were off the bench. But I'm just not sold on Gray. 29 going on 30. Not that I'm sold on Deeney or Murray either. I mean,
well, I was going to say Glenn Murray's 36 going on 56, isn't it?
Yeah, you give him the service inside the 6, he'll be putting numbers up like Calvert-Lewin, right?
Very true. You've nicked one of Suji's players as well, Jeremy Ngakia, who fell out of favour from a contract perspective with West Ham. You picked him up. Spurs played you in a friendly, which you beat us in, deservedly so, in pre-season. And he was quite good at right back. I think he's very solid for Championship level. Yeah,
he's starting right back right now, and everything I've seen, what little I've seen of him so far through, what have we played, 4 games now? He looks solid. He looks good. I mean, he's young and somewhat inexperienced, but I think with the help of Foster back there and hanging on to some of these other defenders, like a Cathcart or who else? I don't even know who else we have back there. And a Cathcart's just one. I think he'll be just fine. I think he'll be fine back in the back. And, I think our defense is much more solid this year. And granted, the caliber of teams we're playing is nowhere near what we saw last year in the Premier League. But, 1 goal conceded in 4 games. I mean, that's a complete turnaround from what we saw last year. So.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really wanted to ask you about, Stephen, because you've had 2 wins, a draw, and a defeat, I think, so far. And you've won the 2 games you've won have been 1-0. The game you lost was 1-0, and the other game you had was 0-0. Now, obviously, in the Premier League at the moment, we're seeing more goals than we've ever seen before. Is there any? A lot of people think it's because obviously there's no crowds. People think it's related to the idea that the games feel a lot more like training sessions for players. There's less pressure. But actually, if you look in the Championship at the moment, goals are very low at the moment. Do you think is there any reason for that?
I think the reason we have no goals is because we have nobody who can score on the pitch. I mean, one thing we would, everybody's been on Pozos to move Deeney. Deeney was looking for a move. He was linked with Spurs for a short period. I think he's still linked with West Brom. Him and Andre Gray are 2 names that West Brom keeps throwing around, depending on what happens to Carlin Grant, if he's coming or not. But, I asked myself, can Deeney still get it done at 30, 31, whatever he is? I don't think he would need that speed up top, and we've got that speed up top with with Sarr, Joao Pedro's playing up there. I think they're our front two, and Pedro's got one of the goals, a great one on the season. But I don't know. I mean, for us, it's a continuing issue is finding that player, that set of players who are gonna go out, work hard, and get the goals. We don't have them right now. You know, I think Pedro's he's a legitimate forward. Sorry, I don't see playing up top. You know, I just like Richarlison when he was used, in the center as our forward. He's a better on the wing, and that's how I picture Sarr, is better on the wing, being in from the flank to score, or providing the crosses. But I don't know where we're going to find goals. I really don't. I think that's going to be an area we struggle now. If we limit teams to, one goal or keep clean sheets, great, we'll have a shot. But if we don't start putting the ball in the back of the net here real soon, I think we're going to be in trouble. And, the Danny Welbeck experiment didn't go well at all last year. And not that it helped that he got injured, but, he was released. And, so basically we're back to two old guys and a kid. And, I don't know why we're not seeing many goals. I can only speak for Watford. I mean, it's bad enough that I'm playing fantasy EFL and I don't know shit about the players there, right? So I don't know. It's been frustrating, watching or seeing the score lines from the championship games and seeing how different they are from the Premier League, where it's night and day. Maybe there's something to be said about no fans in the stands. I'm not sure.
Do you feel you played FPL for a long time? Is that fair?
I think this is year 8.
Year 8. So you were playing before Watford were in the Premier League as well. Did you find your managing your FPL team was different when Watford were in the Premier League? And does it feel different again for you now that you're not? Does anything feel different?
No, because going back to last year, nobody wanted any Watford players. So it's like, yeah, okay, no problem. I can compare it to when I was still playing 38 years later fantasy football over here in the U.S. and having the team that you enjoy, and it's like, oh, do I play this player against this team? It's my team. Who are you rooting for? Do I root for my fantasy team? Do I root for my club I support? No. I'll always stick to my club. The fantasy game is just that. It's a game. So if I have a piss poor week, yeah, no problem. We'll come back next week. If my Hornets pick up 3 points, all the better. I mean, but no, I've got no issues with that. It's easy enough to separate the game from the games. You know what I mean?
A lot of people don't find that easy, though.
I know. Well, it's got to be tough. I mean, especially if you're at a bigger club. I mean, you can use Liverpool, City, Spurs, whatever team you want to use. Yeah, I can understand. I can understand that.
Did you find last year that you were buying players because they were playing against Watford?
No, I didn't. No, Villa. No, I would buy players to play against Villa, but not really Watford. I wouldn't pick out those. I guess I'm doing it now this year that I think about it. It's like, oh, we're targeting West Brom, we're targeting Fulham, targeting Leeds. But no, I don't think I really played any different. I'm not going to target one specific team. Oh, we got a captain so-and-so because he's playing Fulham this week, and we know he's going to get 4 or 5 goals. No, I don't do that.
Listen, no one's, after the last clash of correspondence, no one's captain a Sheffield United player this week. I can absolutely assure you against Fulham, that's not happening. One of the things also wanted to ask you, Stephen, before I let you go, because I know you've got a crack on, you've got things to do, is about the TV situation. Obviously, last year, is it NBC had the Premier League games? Is that correct?
It was NBC.
Am I right in saying that's changed now in America?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's been dynamic for the last, I'm guessing, 5 years. At one point, everything was available every week. We could watch every game for free just with our cable subscription. And then they came out with this NBC Gold. So now it became some of the games were behind a paywall, and others we still got on network television. And then I think another year later, maybe 2 years later, they made it where, okay, we'll show you 2 or 3 games during the day at different times. And then the other 8 or 9 or whatever it was were behind a paywall. Now it seems that everything but maybe 1 or 2 are behind a paywall. It's run the whole spectrum, which has been very odd. And, it's not as bad as what you guys are seeing with the 15 quid per game, but I'll be serious. I pay like $250 US for my internet and cable and phone, and not to get an entire, in this regard, the Premier League package, it pisses me off that I got to pay another $50 US for access to those games. Now, thankfully, and I'll still complain about it because I know there's others who don't have this Peacock or NBC streaming service, but you got to pay for that separately. Thankfully, it's included in my Comcast bill, so I get to see all the games. But it's for a sport that is not huge over here when you compare it to the NFL or Major League Baseball or the NBA. I don't see why they would want to hide everything behind a paywall and stream it when the whole the bottom line is to get more people to watch. It doesn't make any sense. And I know there's a lot of some in the FPL community who are not happy with how NBC has gone and changed everything again. So we'll see.
Like anything, it's greed, isn't it?
It is. It's all about the dollar. That's right, or the pound. Yeah.
And what's the situation for you now in terms of accessing Watford games? Because I know you would have watched like every game for the last few years and stuff.
Yeah. It was great because I could listen to them on Three Counties Radio if I didn't have access to TV. So that was awesome. But now everything's behind a paywall in the Championship, Hive Live, and they want what was it? I think 142 quid a season. So we're looking at about 182 US to get access to watch. I guess all the games. I don't know if that includes cup games or anything of that nature, but all the games. And okay, great, that gives me access to 40 some odd games. But you start breaking it down, and it's like, damn, that's still a little bit more than I want to pay. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to watch my team, but do I want to shell out more money just to have access? So right now I'm on the wall. I'm not doing it. So I gotta find a stream if possible, or just
have you had any success with that, finding streams? Just out of interest? No,
I get guys who will link me to 10 or 15 different streams, and I can't get any of them to work. But if I do, great. If not, then we'll just enjoy the season the way it's going, and follow everything.
Well, I gave the Hive, which is Watford's streaming account, I gave them £5 for the Tottenham game back in September. Can't say we played very well. The one thing that really struck me about Watford that day, and I don't know if it's something to watch out for, because the Bournemouth-Watford game in a couple of weeks is 12:30 p.m. in the UK. It is live on Sky. Is how aggressive you were for a pre-season friendly. You really were aggressive, and then once you got in front, you were happy to play counter-attacking football. And it struck me that if that was the mentality in pre-season, you would definitely be all right this year. And it's very hard to say, particularly when the transfer window isn't closed, if you'll come back or not in terms of promotion. But if you hold on to the likes of Ismail Assar, you're going to be very, very close.
Yeah, like I said, I'm pleased we've held on to him. Like I said, we got some of those other names that are gone. I mean, Welbeck's gone. Mariappa, who's been, back in the defense for years as a utility player. De La Feu, not a big surprise. Pereira, Same. He was getting up there in age. Holobos back to Greece. And Decore. Those are the big names that are gone.
Olibas is taking his yellow cards with him, has he?
That's okay. Olympiacos can have them.
Stephen, thank you so much for giving up your time for us. It's great to have a catch up. Hopefully for those on the audio and watching on YouTube, Neil Grover, our Bournemouth correspondent, will appear very, very shortly. But Stephen, good luck for the rest of the season, my friend. No doubt we'll speak soon.
Sounds good. Cheers, James.
Thanks, Stephen. Take care, mate. I'm now joined by Neil Grover at AFCBNG on Twitter, our Bournemouth correspondent. How are you, Neil?
Really good, thanks. How's everything your end?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. It'd been better if you turned up for this 4 hours ago, but I'm going to blame your other half, basically, mate.
Yeah, I'm all right with that. The door's closed, you can't hear me.
Fair enough. Them chocolates I said I'd send for her? Forget it. Scrapped, mate. Right, let's find out what's going on with the Cherries then. So, big summer. You and I last spoke before the Everton game. Mm-hmm. It was kind of all or nothing.
Yep.
Won the game, wasn't enough. Played well on the day. It ended, obviously, a couple of weeks later with Eddie Howe, obviously, resigning. A few words on Eddie first.
Yeah, I was more upset about him going than relegation, I think. First of all, though, still got my 100% record on Clash of the Correspondents. I think we spoke about that last time.
That's true. which is a strange quirk, by the way.
Yeah. but I was devastated. But at the same time, by the end, you could tell he'd run out of puff, and he needed a break. And I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him in club management again.
That wouldn't overly surprise me either. And I think, unfortunately, it was right time for him. It was right time for the club to kind of reset and start again. So Jason Tindall's obviously in charge now. No, he was part of the backroom team. Is that right?
He was the assistant manager. So they always used to talk about them being like a management pair. So he came through. He was actually in the management team before Howe was appointed. He went to Burnley with him and then came out the other side with him and came back. So they've been together the whole time.
Is there anything he's changed so far on what you've seen?
Yeah, so he's totally changed our formation and style of play. So I think one of the greatest criticisms of Eddie was he was very rigid to his 4-4-2 with wing backs. He tried experimenting with I suppose it's the Wales system, 3 at the back, 2 overlapping wing backs. It just never worked. Tindall has brought that back and he's made it work. So we now play 3 at the back, 2 aggressive wing backs, 3 in the middle, and then sort of 2 up top.
I presume then wing backs, Jack Stacey would be right hand side now,
and Adam Smith on the left.
And Adam Smith on the left, who really is naturally right footed. Yeah,
and which is weird, but it sort of works. We've also got I suppose it's the Sheffield United way of overlapping centre backs.
Okay.
So Rico has been playing as sort of the left-sided centre back, and FPL players will know he was obviously a fullback last year. So that's some of the heat maps are really interesting there, as well as Mepham. It's a shame because he'd be an interesting option if we were still in the Premier League.
Must ask, because particularly some of my patrons will definitely shoot me if I don't mention it. How's your goalkeeper getting on?
What, Begovic?
Yeah, my mate.
Yeah. He's done all right. I mean, he's not been outstanding. He had one game, the game against Borough. He didn't particularly shower himself in glory, but he's been all right. Not outstanding, but I mean, he's an international goalkeeper, right?
Yeah, I mean, apart mentioning it as well, because obviously Aaron Ramsdale is one of a number of players who's obviously left. The club seemed to take a very hard stance on Nathan Ake's move to Manchester City, that it would be the only one. Now, obviously, since then, we've had Ramsdale, Callum Wilson go to Newcastle. You'll probably forgive me, there's more, isn't there? But Josh King is likely to be another one in the next 4 or 5 days. Yeah. So why has the stance changed? Is it just a case of you can't deny these guys Premier League football?
Yeah, I feel like we might have sold, but I don't feel there's one there where we've had our trousers pulled down. I think we've been quite accepting of. I mean, Ake was always going to go, even if we'd stayed up, he was going. I think we've just sold the players for the price that we were willing to take for them. Right? I can't think of one where we've sold them cheaply. So it happens when you go down. There was a budget that we had to fill, like a budget hole, rumoured about 100 million, which we've now filled. And now it's just, anything left will be kind of gravy and probably allow us to buy a couple of players in.
Are you likely to do that, do you think? Are you looking at sort of League One markets and stuff like that still?
I hope so. I think most Bournemouth fans will say we're probably 2 or 3 light at the moment. We've only signed one player this summer so far, and that was a loan deal for a player from Atletico Madrid, Riquelme, who we've not seen yet. But we've lost, 5 or 6 key players, or players at least, and just not replaced them. But the youth have really stepped up this year, I think.
Talk to me about it. Is this like Dominic Solanke? Dan Juma seems integrated into the team a bit more now.
Dan Juma's like a new signing. He's leading our line. Solanke, I mean, needs to have his watershed season, really. We've seen glimpses of it. Like he scored a back heel goal against Middlesbrough. But he's not quite there. Sam Surridge, we've got a few that are like right on the cusp as well. So Namdi Offerbor, who was on loan at Wickham last year, part of that promotion setup. And a few others that are sort of in and around the team that have done well when they've come on. in like cup games. Like we played City and we didn't get demolished by them, and that was mostly youth players.
To be fair, mate, you didn't get demolished by City when you played them in the league at the end of the season as well. You should have got something that day.
Yeah.
It's interesting because obviously speaking to Stephen earlier, actually a lot of that squad at Watford has stayed together for the moment. And it's always with the caveat there's 4 days to go before the transfer window shuts. Yours, a lot have gone, but you still started quite well. And I feel like what you say about Solanke, for example, Solanke needs to be in a position where come next August, he's playing Premier League football, be that with you or with someone else, basically. It's a really important period for him particularly, I think. So, I mean, are you confident of coming straight back?
So far, yes. I mean, we're unbeaten. We've played a lot of teams so far that I think will be in the mix. So we beat Norwich, Burn, who have come out absolutely flying out of the gates, aside from playing us. And Borough away is always going to be a difficult game with Warnock there. The other game was Coventry, who, with respect to them, I mean, I think we're in different leagues at the moment in terms of the Championship. I think the team we played against them was worth 100 million. Theirs was worth about 2. So, there's something wrong if we don't beat them.
That's the disparity from you've come from Premier League and they've come from League One, right?
Exactly. And but we've played well when we've played it, and we've played a different style. I was particularly pleased with the Norwich result. Like, we held on a little bit and it was a bit squeaky bum, as Ferguson would say. But we got the 3 points, and that's really all that matters at the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you make of the amount of goals in the Premier League at the moment? Because that's not happening in the Championship as such. I mean, particularly speaking to Stephen, I think there's been 3 goals in the 4 games that his team's been involved in. There's been more in yours, in fairness, like the 3-1 win at Coventry and stuff. But is there anything in that? Because, I mean, Stephen just nailed it on the head quite simply to say, basically, there's better goal scorers in the Premier League, right?
Yeah. And I feel like I've always felt that one of the main differences between the Championship and the Premier League, particularly the bottom of the Championship, defenders are less likely to they're going to perhaps give you that extra yard of space and make the attacker create something. Whereas in the Premier League, they've got the ability, perhaps the speed as well, to kind of go to you. So you've got to be a bit more creative. But if they naff it up, you're in on goal. Plus, I don't think you can ignore the fact that you had that flurry of penalties in the first 3 weeks that was just madness.
Tell me about it. Do you find, how long have you played FPL for?
7 years, something like that. So yeah.
Before you came up?
Yeah.
Do you find that you changed when you came up, and do you find that you changed the way you do it now as well, with the fact that you can't pick from Wilson, King, etc.?
Yeah, I think the first year we came up, naturally, I just ended up having 3 Bournemouth players in like every week, just kind of because we could. But towards the end, I was less so. There was a couple of seasons near the beginning, like where Daniels was just you had to have him, right? He was
Charlie, Tottenham boy.
Exactly. So you had to have players like that, and then the Wilson Fraser season as well. But like last season, I very rarely had a Bournemouth player. I started with Ramsdale, and I think that was about it. So,
I regret when you and I had a beer in Tottenham in November, I regret not seeing how the signs right there and then of how bad it was for you. Like when we met up, I've spoken about it a few times, I couldn't believe how negative you were towards the team. And should have seen it coming, really, that lack of goals, lack of creativity. What happened with Ryan Fraser, I think, was a really big deal last year. What do you think about the guys who've left? I mean, for example, do you think Nathan Aké's going to be a success at Man City?
He deserves to be. I think without doubt, he was definitely the best defender I've seen in a Bournemouth shirt. Probably there's an argument for the best player. He's got all the attributes to be like a properly good top centre-back. I feel bad for him because there's no way he's getting into that Dutch team with Virgil van Dijk and De Ligt in front of him.
He's not getting in the Man City team either now with Laporte and Diaz, is he?
No, but he should do. He's got all the attributes to be at least a top 6 centre-back. if not better than, like the next tier, like a City or someone. So I totally get why they signed him.
I guess from the FPL players that have moved on, Callum Wilson's the one that would maybe be of interest. How do you think he'll get on? Because I felt he struggled a lot last year. I don't know if it was kind of a heavy burden on him, the fact he broke into the England squad, for example. It starts weighing heavy on people. I think, you're an England international now. He's made a decent start for Newcastle. He looks like he's going to be assured of his place every week. Would he be a consideration for you?
He's in, so I'm considering wildcarding over the international break, which was always my plan, and I always tend to do it because you get a feel for what's going on. But he's pretty much in my draft for that, so I expect him to do well. He's a great striker. There's no getting around that. I think, like you said, last year, I think we over relied on him, and that weighed on him too much. No one else was really chipping in. And there were periods where we were just really terrible. There's no getting around that.
And I take it, as we kind of mentioned, you think Josh King will move on.
Yeah, he's gone.
Is there rumours that West Ham's the latest, but it seems like West Ham are trying to buy him and Benrahma from Brentford. I'm guessing it probably won't be both.
I don't know enough about the Brentford chap, but we supposedly rejected a bid for, I think it was 13.5 million for him today. We want 18, but we're frankly not very happy with West Ham as they've verbally tapped him up. They've agreed full personal terms with him before coming to us, which we all know it happens.
It does.
Right? But you still shouldn't do it, right? So
don't worry. Chelsea have been talking to Declan Rice, I should imagine. Yeah. It goes around, unfortunately.
I know, it happens, but I feel like they don't. I feel like West Ham have been quite outward with how they've done it. I've not, to somewhat change tack on players that are going out, I've not been impressed with Chris Wilder either, with Brooks. I think he's been very unprofessional with how he's done that.
What did he say? Because I've missed that.
So he came out and basically said, we really want to sign Brooks. He's a player that we really like.
Okay.
We're going to go after him, which you don't do for me. For me as a manager, you say, I won't comment on other players. We may be looking to build in that area, but you don't go out and start saying, we want this player and start unsettling him and doing all that. There was a lot of rumours that they came in for him and we rejected it, which I was very pleased with. He's massive, I think, for our year.
Yeah, well, he was part of that missing of creativity last year. Has he been playing at the start of this?
He missed the last 2 weeks. He went down. We all had a little panic because he had viral symptoms, but got tested and was negative. But it just knocked him back for a little bit. So I think that's where the rumours started, because he wasn't playing, but he was ill and then was on the bench because he wasn't quite ready. But he will be playing, and he played the first couple of weeks. He played for Wales tonight as well, I think.
Okay. Do you expect him to move then, or
no? I think he'll stay until January. It's interesting because actually the next, normally we have 4 months before the next window, but this time we've got nothing. It's 2 months, and then it's the window again.
What do you think about the window, the fact that there's this extension for transfers between Premier League and EFL clubs beyond the regular window? What do you feel about that?
I feel like I get it, because this year with the uncertainty, there's going to be clubs that are still in need of making some money. I think we're fortunate that Bournemouth basically banked hard and banked early with Ake and Wilson and Ramsdale. So I feel like we're not in a desperate situation. We're now just playing for transfer budget, basically.
I mean, presumably Ake, Wilson and Ramsdale would be close to the loss of TV money from last season, I would have thought.
Yeah, I mean, the rumour that came out was we needed 100 million, roughly.
That's about 70 to 3 of them, is it?
Yeah, something like that. So a bit more than that, I think. But yeah, yeah, exactly. We're more or less there, and then we restructured some of the finances in the background to sort of get things sorted. We've got a couple of larger players off the wage budget as well, with Fraser going, Ibe going, and probably King going as well.
Okay, what's the situation for you? And I know the guys will know you from before you go up and down the country and watch Bournemouth, which obviously none of us are doing at the moment. There's obviously a big hoo-ha at the moment about Premier League pay-per-view and stuff like that.
Yep.
Can you just let people know what the situation is for you as a Bournemouth fan and accessing games at the moment?
Yeah, so, I mean, Bournemouth didn't go down the iFollow route, so they have got their own system. It's built off the same rails, I think, but essentially we pay £10 a game. If it's on Sky, you can't access that game. You have to have Sky. Unless you're a season ticket holder, in which case you get like a code for a free game. So it's great if you're a season ticket holder. It's great. So, but if you're not, like myself, you have to pay every game. I'm in an interesting situation because over the international break, I've watched Cambridge via it and sort of seen their system as well. Very similar, but the clubs get most of that money, and I think that's the key, particularly in the EFL. They make that money.
And the charge to watch Cambridge, which is League 2, is it?
Yep.
Is the same as it would be for any club in the EFL. Is that right?
Yeah. So it's £10.
Okay. So why are Bournemouth running their own system, do you think, or no? Or
I feel like it's to do with some of the future stuff they want to do, particularly if we go up. I think they're putting in the infrastructure to be a bit more international, but that's just a guess, I think.
And it's worth saying, with respect, you're quite a small club anyway. We've spoken about it before. What's the situation that you're aware of in terms of ticketing and stuff? Because again, obviously none of us can go at the moment, but you basically can't get to home games, but find it easy enough to get tickets for away games is basically where you're at. In a roundabout way, does this relegation open that door back for you now to potentially get in for home games?
I don't think year one. You may see that some people gave up their season tickets, but I don't think it'll be a huge amount. If we stay in the Championship, if we don't go back up this year, then yes, I think it will do. I think you'll see a natural amount of people drop off. But I feel like most people expect, and as much as you can expect anything in football, expect us to be back in the Premier League when fans can come back, whether or not that's right or not.
So you haven't had to sign up now for membership, or are you familiar with what other season ticket holders are doing? There's no Bournemouth haven't asked for any money or anything like that, no.
Not for me. So season ticket holders have paid. They paid. I think it's something like the 6th or 7th year they've frozen prices. They paid that in their normal sort of season ticket window over the summer. Then what they are doing is some convoluted refund thing each game that you can't go to, and then there'll be some sort of ballot, but it doesn't affect sort of a non-season ticket holder like myself. I just pay £10 when I want to watch the game, or £2.50 if I want to listen to it.
I guess if you could get in, Bournemouth is one of the stadiums that's likely to be very restricted in terms of access for numbers, I presume. Yeah,
but it depends on how they do it, right? So if it's done on percentage, then yeah. If it's done on you're allowed 2,000 people in, like they've done in the past, Middlesbrough they let 1,000 fans in. I think actually that could be because 2,000 fans in Bournemouth Stadium will be a lot less ridiculous than 2,000 fans in Spurs' stadium, right?
Telling me, mate, 2,000 in our place now would just be empty.
Exactly. Whereas there are games in the past where we've had 2,000 fans when you could have sold 10,000. So, and if you were to put them in the right places, I think you wouldn't hugely notice the difference. I mean, you would, but yeah, it could be an advantage for us.
No, I mean, 2,000 in yours is going to look a lot more full than 2,000 in Tottenham. I mean,
correct.
It goes without reason. I completely get what you're saying.
I also think it's going to be a massive advantage for us if the longer this stays with 0 fans, because traditionally you would imagine it favours better teams in the division, which we probably are, and there's going to be, I don't know, like Birmingham away or Stoke away, where they might have vocal home support that we're just not going to play against that. So I'm not against.
Yeah, I mentioned this to an Arsenal fan actually very recently, that the Arsenal's away fixture list to start with has been like Liverpool, Man City, Man United, sort of places, going to be quite intimidating if they're full and whatnots potentially. And Arsenal fans are potentially getting that out the way actually. and playing more routine home games, generally speaking, across the fixtures. It's the sort of thing interesting to watch out on, actually, if we get crowds back in the ground, if we look back on it in hindsight and go, like what you said there, places like Stoke, Birmingham that might be quite loud, missed out on them. That's a bit of an advantage. Almost like Tottenham are playing at Burnley next Monday night in the league. And it just psychologically, it doesn't feel like the same game that it normally would. And Burnley aren't particularly loud, no disrespect to the guys, but it's that cycle, Burnley away, and the crowd's part of it, aren't they?
Can we not talk about Burnley away, please? I still have flashbacks.
Sorry, Neil. If you want to go down that route, we can. We know it was one of the worst handball decisions ever seen until my team suffered a few this season.
Well, I know.
We won't go down that route. I think, interesting, I know Norwich haven't started particularly well. Do you think there's a reason behind that? Because bar, obviously, Lewis and Godfrey, they've kept hold of the majority of the team as well, no?
Yeah, I feel like they had quite a few players that were wanted. Like a lot of, all three of us have had. Watford have had Sarr, that's just ongoing. We've had half of our team. Norwich have been the same with Buendia and Cantwell as well, who are still. Are they going to go? Are they not going to go? But I can't really put my finger on it. I had Norwich as probably winning the league this year. But I mean, that's the beauty of the Championship, right? You never quite know who's going to do it. And I certainly hadn't, Blackburn at the moment are up there in the mix. Reading as well. Reading have won all their games. Didn't have them at the start of the season.
Oh, Reading are going through. We did a podcast on them for patrons last week. It's shit or bust for them this year. If they go up this year, great. If they don't go up this year, they won't go up, basically, in the next few years. It's shit or bust for them financially. Your club, fortunately, we all know that the longer a team comes out in the Premier League and the longer it stays it out, the longer it feels to get back into it, the harder it gets, essentially. Mm-hmm. I think you've got a great shot. I think Stephen's Watford have got a great shot. And I think actually once the window shuts, if Mark's Norwich have got most of the team intact, they'll improve as well, I should imagine, because they've got enough quality in that side, really. But as ever, consistency so very, very important in that league.
Yeah. And to be honest, I think this was probably the best year to go down. If there is a good year to go down, because I don't think anyone around us has particularly strengthened either.
Well, if some of the top six are having their way, it might be a very good year to go back up, because next year might only be two teams, but that could be a whole other podcast. I'm sure me and Suj will cover it in the near future, no doubt. Thank you, mate. Neil, thanks very much for joining us. Absolute pleasure, mate. Wish you and Bournemouth the very best for the rest of the season. In terms of the rest of our content this week, People's Poll tomorrow. Vote is out somewhere on Twitter at the moment. Sky on Wednesday. Another Clash of Correspondents Thursday. Rotation FPL Gaff will be looking at Chelsea and Southampton. I'll be streaming Friday. Deadline stream Saturday. That's your free content for the week. 5 more podcasts for patrons at intermediate tier and above. Other than that, leaves me to say thanks to Neil and, of course, thanks to Stephen. Thanks very much. Cue music, please, man child.